Good morning. How y'all doing out there, Powermetrix Nation? We got an interesting one for you today. We've had interesting ones in the past also, but we got one a little special today because we've got some guests that are here joining us. We've got a pretty crazy site to test, so all is going to happen at one time this morning, so it's going to be pretty good. So let me introduce the guests. So you see here on the monitor right here is Martin Hyatt, and Martin Hyatt is out of Spokane, Washington, and Martin covers the western third of the United States for Powermetrix and also Canada. Is that about right, Martin?
That is correct.
Okay. So Martin covers, like I said, Canada and western United States. And then Mr. Lowry is here. And Mr. Lowry, he covers the central United States for us. And Martin was going to be here, but travel and the flying and everything else, we're going to go ahead and go virtual with him. So we're going to go over, like we got a great video to go over today. It's critters on crack, I guess you could say. So it's definitely, you don't just see this every day. So it's going to be a good one to test. It is a 4S meter, and it's being used out by an amphitheater for actually they've got some, I think I mentioned it in the other videos, they've got some big containers and things they power up and have lighting out to them just so that they can store stuff in it. And then we got some wreck vehicles and wreck posts out there to power up some RVs and stuff out there, and that's what this was for. So agenda, yeah, we'll talk real quickly, a quick recap of what we're doing here, and then we had to do a pad inspection, and you're going to see the surprise that we found, and then we're going to do the connections. And then this is also interesting in that we get questions on this all the time. What happens if there's no load there? How do I test the CTs? And so we're going to do a load boost test on this site. So not only is there not enough load there, but there's other interesting stuff we're going to deal with when the video starts up. And then we're going to take a look at the results and what we got after the test. So as you know, we will, if you've ever watched any of these, the first thing we're going to do is say a prayer, and then we're going to jump into this. So let's rock and roll. Precious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time today. Time for us to learn our craft better. And as we say all the time, Father, though, more importantly, that everyone makes it home safe in one piece to their families. And with everything that's going on right now, especially in this country with health, and it seems like every day we're just hearing more and more about friends and co-workers and people that we know that are having some sort of medical issues and everything that's going on in this country right now. Father, we're going to turn to you in this, and it tells us in your word that we can't really put our faith and trust in men, and it's true. So we're going to lift up folks to you. For one, I'm going to lift up Mitch's father. Mitch's father is dealing with some serious health stuff right now, and I want to lift him up, Lord. He needs that comfort that you can give someone that this earth can't even understand. And also want to lift up here at our work Denise's friend who's just started dialysis today. And also wanted to lift up, I've got another ex-rep of ours out there who's going through some health stuff. And so, Lord, it seems like there's a lot of health things that we're praying about right now. But in the midst of all that, Father, really the health we should worry about is our hearts. And so help us to just try and walk the walk that you would have us walk and not what our pea brains would have us do. Because as soon as we get in line with you, things seem to always work out a lot better. So, Father, all of these things I ask and say, according to the will of the one who paid it all, my brother, Jesus Christ. Amen. Cool. All right. Let's stick this pig. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of drawing over here on the whiteboard at some point. So we'll talk about that when we really get into the test a little bit. But initially, we'll just go ahead and start this thing up. And at any time, Martin, if you want to say something, just raise your hand. JP will see it and we'll stop. Same with you, Kent. That's kind of the way we roll here. So if you want to just make a comment, just holler and point at JP and he'll stop it, all right? Cool.
Son. Okay, we'll need to talk about this. This is an ant colony.
You might want to
Yeah, move. Yep, let me move it.
I don't want to hold on to it.
Oh, wait. You got the drill. Okay.
Well, we didn't see any ants.
Out here, they weren't out here at all because they built all in there.
But they're in there now.
Whew. Well, and now that I'm looking at this, son, I don't see any room to stick my drive.
Real quick, sorry. And one thing let me say real quick is you're seeing it after you notice the lid. We've already opened the lid up. You didn't see the initial opening of the lid. And JP remembers this. It was literally formed the entire inside of that transformer. It was a total ant colony. So when we opened it up, big chunks fell out. You can see some chunks outside laying on the ground, and we got them out of the way. We got some pole shovels and cleaned it out. And that's before you're seeing what you're seeing now. Okay. Thanks, JP.
Cable through that. Can you? There's no room to.
We really can't get it through there, I don't think.
Will it lift up at all? Can you lift up on that CT? Is there any room if you look?
Well, I mean, we could show doing that one CT. We ain't gonna be able to show doing both.
No, we were just gonna do one anyway for time. I'm just saying, can I even get one through there? My drive cable.
Let me get my dang sweaters on. I don't want to get pinched for not having my sweaters on.
No, but we know. Okay, you may as well go ahead and run it. We'll talk about this for a second.
I'll see if I can get it in there.
While you're doing that, I'll do this. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, we have a discovery issue here. So when we actually opened up the transformer, we can see it turns out it is an ant colony. So they weren't on the outside, but remember I had said on that one side it was totally built up, and you can only see the pad on 3 of the sides. Well, evidently they did all their work on the inside. They didn't work on the outside. So we have got a significant ant farm here. So it'll make it a little bit more challenging, but not anything that everybody doesn't run into all the time out there in the field. That's why they call it field work. So we're still going to attempt to see if we can't get at least this top CT right here. We're going to try and get our drive cable through there. But so you know, to be able to test it, you have to put a drive cable through the CT, and that's what we're going to drive current through and energize the CT so that we can test it. That's what a load boost test is. So what we're going to do first is we're going to try and find if we have room to get the drive cable through there. If we don't, unfortunately, we won't be able to do the load boost test, but we're about to give it a shot here in a second, and we're going to see if we can get that through there. Oh, it's tight in there. God dog. Dude, I didn't I don't think you're gonna make it, brother. That sucks. You sure you can't get to that one?
So how do you challenge a field guy? Tell him he can't do it. So that's what I did with Jonathan. I was like, I don't think you can do that. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, oh, we're going to test this one now. So, I mean, and I don't want to slight the spiders. So there are also spiders as well as ants. I don't want to select the spiders. So.
No, because I'm going to hit the
same thing. Honey. That would be it. Uh-oh. Did he get a lane? May never get it out. We'll just cut it. Oh!
I'll get in there.
Tell him what he won, Johnny.
Get to be on a webinar.
Now the thing is, getting it out.
There you go.
I'm just glad that ain't 400 CTs.
Yeah, I am too. Because there's no way. Cool.
John, you got a 50 amp in the truck?
Yeah, really. Nope, don't carry him. I mean, never mind, I didn't say it. Cool. All right, and then we can talk about it now that you got it through there. We can talk about over here on A phase. Okay. I'll go ahead and connect it up.
You got some ants in it?
Yes, I kind of blew it out a little bit.
I can't imagine why.
A drive, a return. All right. Then on this, we will go. Give yourselves as much slack as possible. They fell down in there. Okay, cool. I don't need to wear gloves for this. Oh, you're filming all that? Let's see if we can do it with gloves.
I've got another conundrum for you.
Okay, let's talk about a load boost test. So when you do a load boost test, what we're going to do is we're going to drive current through the CT, and then that way we can test it, because remember we had 0 at this site, so we saw 0 secondary amps. So here's how we make the connections. Let's talk about the test switch. The way you make the connections at the test switch are, we have a different current cable now. The current cable that we've got has got 6 millimeters on the end of it. Can you see them down there, JP? So we've got these 6 mil connectors down here, right? There's B phase. I use a current cable that has 6 mils on the end of it instead of duck bills, okay? And I'm going to use B phase to read, and I'm going to drive with A phase. So here are my A phases are over here, the ends of that same cable. But what I have through that is, it's created a nice little, I think the ants are considering it a ride, so they're walking along the cable. But here's what we do is, we're going to drive through this. So what we've done is, you take the drive end, and that should go into the dot side of the CT, which is the back side of that CT you see over there, okay? You can point that CT for me there, Jonathan, the CT. So there's the CT. The back side of it is the dot. So when he ran through here, and I don't care which direction you go through it, which end you run through, but you have to make sure that the drive end is on the dot side of the CT when you end up with it. You can run in the drive side or the return side, I don't care. But when you're done, the result should be that this drive end is going into the dot side. Think of it as this is my pot now, right? So dot to the pot. So I'm going to drive through here. Now, to be able to read this current going into here, I need to capture not only what's there. Now, you either go around conductors, you want to get around the existing conductors, but also my drive cable, right? Because I need to pick up the current that I'm driving plus, let's say there's just a little bit on there, but remember we want to be at 10% of the rating of the CT. So let's say I only have 2 amps running through there. Well, I want to get to, on a 200 to 5, I want to have at least 20 on there. Well, I don't want to dismiss those 2, right? I want to wrap around my existing, but also get that drive cable in there of what I'm now producing and running through there. So that's what Jonathan did. You can see here, he's got not only the drive cable running through there, but because this is a really tight, and you can see the size of those conductors, we tried running them through over here and couldn't get it anywhere. We ran around the backside, but that drive cable is running through that flex as well.
Okay, so let's talk about what we just went over there. Okay, so we're talking about a load boost test. So what we're saying is we show up at the site and there's not enough load, and per ANSI, remember you should be at 10% of the rating of that CT for it to be a ANSI test, you know, in case an issue comes up and you want to be able to say, hey, here's the test we ran on it on customer complaint or whatever else. According to ANSI, you should have at least 10% on there, right? So for a 200 to 5, you should have at least 20 amps running through there. So if I show up and I got a very small, and I can look on the test kit, it shows me primary and secondary current, and I can look at that and see I don't have near enough current on this site. So now I'm going to have to do something. So to test those CTs, I'm going to have to use the load box of the equipment to force the current through the CT then to get to that at least 10%, so it's a legit test. Okay, so my test kit will become the customer. It will become the load, and it'll go through that CT. So in this case, to give you an idea, so we got a CT right here, dot to the pot, right? So this is the 6 mil cable that we're using on there. We go to the 6 mil because we're using a lot more current here, right? So you need to have something beefier, all right, than 4 mil. So we got a 6 mil. So when we get ready to make these connections, here is the drive cable that we use with these. And you can see that the ends of it are labeled. One of them is labeled drive and one of them is labeled return on here, okay? So what you have to do is you just have to make sure, as I just said in the video, you want the drive end. In other words, that's coming from, like we talked about, pot. So this would become like coming from the pot. So my drive side, I drive and go into the dot side of the CT, right? So here's my CT. Hold that for me. I can't trade with you. So if this is the dot side over on this side, okay? So here's the dot side on here for Kent. So when I mentioned earlier, I don't care which way you go in, what I meant by that was, when it's all said and done, here's all I want to make sure that I've got, because every installation is different, right, on how you can get to anything. You can tell by the example we've got right here. You can't just get to these CTs and get in any way you want all the time, right? All I want to make sure is this drive end is out of the dot side. So I don't care whether you come, what I meant by that was, I don't care if you come in this way or if you come in this way and get to that point. See what I mean? I don't care which way you do it. I just want the drive end to be out here on the dot side of that CT, because then that means I'm driving my current into the dot side just like you would be coming from a transformer, dot to the pot. So I'm coming from the transformer. I'm the transformer now, so I'm coming from here. I'm going into the dot side here with the drive end of it, okay? We talked about double looping. If this was a 400 to 5 and I wanted to put 400 through it, then I would just double it through there, right? In this case, we had a 200 to 5, and we have a 20 amps that we're driving through it. 20 amps hits the ANSI amount. But remember, we said if you've got something else running through here, you need to grab all of it with the flexes, okay? You need to get your flex around everything. And I don't know if you noticed on there, but this popsicle stick, the reason you use this popsicle stick on the test switch is, what happens when you put that that duck bill in there? When you put the duck bill in there, you get the separation, top and bottom. I can get a flow now, right? Well, I don't have a duck bill in there anymore. I've got 2 alligator clips, top and bottom, right? But I have nothing doing that separation for me, so I have to use one of these popsicle sticks or something. I mean, I've even done it when I didn't have one of these and folded up, cards, business cards, and shoved in there. You just need to get that separation so I can get the flow out of the top and bottom of that test switch on that phase I'm testing, okay? So, set this one down and go back to that. So, what we do is when you're doing a load boost test, you use A to do your driving, which is A phase for us. We're red, yellow, blue, ABC. So we're going to use the red to drive the current through that CT, and then we're going to use the yellow, B phase, to read, all right, our secondary current. We're driving through the primary, and we know how much that is because we're driving it, right? And then we'll measure it. So we're going to measure the primary with a flex. Then on the secondary side, we're picking that up, we're reading that with the 2 alligator clips, okay? So what happens is this drive cable, okay, I take the drive cable and I come over here to A phase, and I just match up my cables right here. And I've got one is drive and one is return. So I just put the drive on the drive, and I run this through, and then I make the connection back here on the end. So that this is going through my CT now, right? So this is going through my CT, so I'm driving on A phase now. Now on B phase, what I do here on B phase is that's where I do my reading, and that's where I use these alligator clips. And I take an alligator clip, and I come in here, and I take the alligator clip you see in the webinar, right? And I would go right here on this one. I would take the white one, I would go on the top, and I would connect to return right here, right? And I would put it on the bottom, right? In the white, out the black. So I put it on there where it looks just like a duckbill. White at the top, black at the bottom. It's not every time, and I mention it here because remember, we understand it's about the flow. It's not always that way, but in this case it is. So we would have in the white, out the black. So what I do is I use my 2 alligator clips with my popsicle separator between them. That's how I read my secondary current, and then I read my primary current with the good old handy dandy flex, okay? So and you saw how we did it in there. We ran our drive cable through. We made sure this was around both the drive cable was running through here and also the existing conductors are running through here. Because remember, if I don't pick up what's already there, it's not enough to get me to the ANSI level. It's not 20 amps, but if it's 5 amps or whatever it might be, well, guess what? If I don't pull that in with the rest of it, it's going to throw my ratios off, right? So I need to get what's there already, but also what I'm adding to it. So we loop this around both of them. Okay. I think that was better than drawing it, don't you?
Yeah.
I was going to draw it up there.
Plus, I think to your point, you'll also want to make sure you've got your flex, your arrow, pointing in the proper direction.
That's right. Good point, because you're kind of dictating it, right? Because you're putting the drive cable through, so you're putting that through, but using the orientation of the dot on the CT to do all that, we'll make sure, remember, there's always that arrow. Good point, Kent. There's always that arrow on that flex, right, that has to be correct. You know, if it's the wrong way, you're going to get polarity reverse, right? So you're going to climb all up in the ants, you're going to get everything all connected up, then you're going to hit the button, it's going to go polarity reverse, so wow, wow, wow. So just remember, get the arrow going in the correct direction, okay? Cool.
I think that was better than drawing it, so I didn't have to move the camera.
Aha!
Thank you.
Nice.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, he always has to be the hands-on, the handheld camera guy to do the whiteboard over
He's
there.
always like, how many cameras do you need, John? And he says, 2. And then we get about halfway through this, and he's like, oh, I wish I'd said 3.
Yeah. I just start dragging things out here on set. And I'm like, here, man, let's do the whiteboard. Here, let's do this. And he's sitting here with his 2 cameras going, dude, really?
I should just start setting up 3 by default.
Nice.
All right.
One thing, though, I did want to mention, and that is, and I don't have to go to the whiteboard for this. You heard me talking about the dot, remember? Well, think about this on a Padmount transformer, right? I've got my, God, Zell, it probably would be better for me to draw. All right, let's draw. Is that cool?
Yep.
Nice shot. Okay. Okay, so when you're in a Padmount transformer, remember, again, dot to the pot. Well, if I'm looking at the back of a Padmount transformer right here, and I've got my 3 phases, I've got A, B, and C phases, right? In the back of a Padmount transformer. Now, see, I've got my 3 phases right here. We need to turn lights off or anything? Can they see?
You can turn it down a little bit.
Okay. Cool.
Move the board clockwise like 3 degrees. There you go.
Nice. So I've got, these are my A, B, and C, my 3 phases coming out the back of that transformer, right? Well, remember, literally, I've got my spade terminals are sticking straight out at me coming off of this whiteboard if this was the back of a transformer, right? So my spade terminals are sticking straight back at me. Well, where do they put those CTs? They put them on the back side of it. Of course, they're not going to put it on the... So if that's my spade terminal, they're not going to put it here. They're going to go back over here and mount that CT right back here. Now remember, this is the back of my transformer right here, okay? So, and this is pointing straight back out at me. So if you think about that, that CT is turned, there we go. Yes, sir. So the CT is in there like this, right? Because that spade terminal is coming straight back at me. Well, remember, it's dot to the pot. So I'm coming from into the back of that transformer. So where's that dot always going to be? That dot's going to be on the back side of that CT. So I like what one guy told me out there at the utility. He says, if I ever open up a pad map and I see dots, I'm immediately starting to think, wait, what's going on? Because think about it, they should all be turned this way. I shouldn't see any of those dots in a pad mount, right? Unless they've done something squirrely. Generally, if I open up a pad mount, I don't want to see dots, right? I want to see it the other way. So That's why you saw the dot was on the back side in this application, right, this installation. That's why it was tough. We had to come in the back side somehow with that drive cable. Because remember, dot to the pot. And if it's coming in the back side back here, then that's where I gotta have my drive cable coming in back like this to drive that. So my drive cable is always gonna look just like what's coming from the pot. So I'm gonna run it through here, and that's what we had to do. So that's why you saw Jonathan playing with it, get just enough of a gap. Remember, you can come in either way, as long as the drive ends up over here on this back side of that CT, okay? Cool.
Notice he double wrapped. So he's double wrapped around there, but he's also got the drive cable through there. So he's got the existing, and then what I'm producing and driving through there, you need all of that in there, or you'll maybe get a failed on your ratio test, because what little is running through there, you're not capturing. You have to capture all of it. So he's got all of it running through that flex that he's double wrapped. Now if you come back over here, that's what we're driving. A phase, 6 mils you use to drive. So the red. The yellow, 6 mils, B phase are used to read. So what I do is I come over here to the test switch and I go top and bottom. So I've got the black on the bottom, the white on the top. If it helps you, think about it like a duck bill. You know, most of the time, remember, it's always about the flow, but it's always in the white and out the black. So I put the white at the top and I put the black at the bottom. So I connect it here and I connect it here. And these are attached to that yellow 6 mil down here on the cable. They're connected here, all right? That's the one, that's the black, and that's the white alligator clip. So they're on B phase. You don't use C phase on a CT load boost test. You just use A phase and B phase, A to drive, B to measure. So I come in here, but you need a popsicle stick to separate that, because I'm reading one in and one out, okay? So I am going to use the popsicle stick to stick in here, and then I'm going to connect my white alligator at the top and my black alligator at the bottom. So now, just like I said, think of it as a duck bill, white at the top and black at the bottom, in the white, out the black. Okay, and then I separate them here. So let's go over here to the machine, and I'll previous back out here, and I'll show you what I picked here. I'm going to go to my instrument transformer testing, number 4. So I go to that. Then I got a CT boost test, right, with the load box. That's what I'm doing. So I go to number 2. So here's what I'm doing. So I can choose, it defaults to 0.5 ohms of burden that I'm putting on here. So I'm just going to leave that. It always highlights, because remember, if you double wrap, you want to check the double wrap box. So it highlights it for you when you go to that screen. So I press this button here and I check it. So I've checked it there. So now because Jonathan double wrapped, so I'm double wrapped. So I check the double wrap box. Then I come over to my drive current. This is a 20 amp model, so I'm going to drive the most that I've got, because remember, there wasn't anything here. These are 200 to 5s, so I want that ANSI 10%, so I'm going to run 20 amps through there. So I'm going to set that for 20 amps. So I'm going to go forward to that, and I'm going to put 20 amps through there, okay? Now, when I get over here to number of turns, the number of turns I'm leaving 1, because it's a 20 amp test kit. I'm running 20 amps through every time I run that through there. So all I needed was 20 amps to get a good test. If these were 400 to 5s, I would have looped it through twice, and I would have changed that number to a 2, right? Because I would have 2 turns. In this case, I only have 1 turn, because 1 turn gives me my 20 amps, gets me to ANSI, which qualifies me to have a good ANSI test. So I'm going to run 20 amps through there. So I put that in there, and I just hit next. And it's showing me again. Remember, it always shows you these before you test a meter or you test a CT. And we've got the open circle right here, because it tells me I'm going to have to move it. And you do move this whole setup from phase to phase. This only allows you to test 1 phase at a time, but it's pretty awesome that we can go out here and do a load boost test, show up with nothing. Think about what we've done at this site. We showed up here with nothing. We did a phantom load test on the meter, and now we're doing a load boost on the CTs. So we're testing both the meter and the CTs on this site when I show up and I got nothing. So I don't have to walk away from this site without testing anything. So I'm good there, so I'm going to hit F6. And it's telling me, like always, move the probe over here to phase A, so I hit that. Now it's going to start up the load box. You'll probably hear the fan kick up a little bit as it's going to start cranking up the load box, because we're driving that 20 amps through that CT, right? So I need to crank up the load box. Another thing to mention real quick while it's cranking up, remember the orientation of my, my arrow. So when Jonathan put that on there, remember my drive cable, I was driving through that CT and coming around, that's the direction he put the arrow. He put the arrow in the direction that I'm driving through with that drive cable, okay? Remember, the arrow goes in the direction of the current or towards the load. So in this case, I had my drive into the drive cable. I knew I was driving through on the pot side. So when he wrapped it around there, he put his arrow going the same way, the same direction as my drive cable, okay? So once it's ready, it says I can go ahead and start the test and hit F6.
Okay, so we have an issue. It's telling us right here we got low primary input. So what does that mean? That means remember, we're dealing primary and secondary, right? So I'm not picking up any primary current. So where am I measuring the primary current?
Mr. Martin can probably include it in.
Oh, that's true. So Martin, what am I using to measure the primary current in this situation? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh. So Martin, what am I using to measure the primary current?
You should be using
When
your
I-
flex
when I'm
probe, I
using
would imagine.
That's exactly right. Now, in this situation, in this particular site, you remember what we looked at with the ants and all the craziness? If it's telling me that it's not getting any primary current, what might the issue be? You can jump in, Ken.
You've got it on the wrong CT.
Yeah, we're on the wrong phase because remember I just got the A and B phase. I got one that's completely covered up. I can't even get to. I didn't know which one was which, so I just ran it through. So Jonathan just when we ran it through there, realized what we were on. Next thing you know, we run the test, and you're going to see right here, it's going to say, whoa, 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 I don't have any primary current because I wasn't on the correct phase. So go ahead, Brad.
Which is understandable with the mess you have.
Yeah.
So now, let's go to the next one, and I'm going to talk about this here in just a second. Let's hit this. We're in tight quarters here, so I wanted to wait in a second because we'll walk back over there. But while JP's all in a good position, I'll wait and explain in a second what just happened. So telling me I can test, so I'm going to hit F6 again. Okay, so we're going to hit the button here on F6 and start the...
Okay, so remember what happened here. We were on the wrong phase. So the machine's going, wait a minute, you're telling me to measure this. Remember, when you do a load boost test, you take that configuration that we've set up, right? You take we're setting up we're running a drive cable through there. We're putting our alligator clips on that same phase that we're testing, right? Let's say we're starting A phase. So I'm gonna go A phase, and I'm gonna put my alligator clips top and bottom on the test switch. I'm gonna put in my my popsicle stick. I'm going to run my drive cable through. I'm gonna get my flexes on there. Well, remember, when you get ready to do B phase, you got to move that whole thing over to B phase now, and then just redo it again, then move it over to C phase. Well, in this case, we were on the wrong phase, and the machine did not like it because we didn't really know what we were trying to, we're just trying to get through the ants, to be honest. So we're trying to figure out what's what in there. So you remember from earlier, he managed to kind of jack that thing around a little bit to where he was able to get it through the drive cable, because the main things are the ends, right? Because the ends are bigger than the actual cable itself. So it's getting those 6 mil connector ends. right? So he managed to get that through there, but we didn't know what phase we were dealing with. So now that we're on the correct phase, we should get a lot better.
Test. It's going to start at the load box. You can hear the fans kicked up a little bit, so it's going to get the load box rolling. Has to go through its checks right here before it gets to the bottom, because I don't have start test coming up yet. But as soon as it goes through all those, then start test will come up so that I can start the test. Okay, so it's telling me okay to start the test. Okay, so the reason we had the little cut there for a second was I'm on B phase, okay, over here, and we'll back out now so I can show you, but we tested fine. You can see that my phase angle there and everything didn't cause me any problems, because I would have had the red here on a fail and I would have followed it. So it's saying everything's okay. So we ran a great test here, and if you think about it, we're actually providing the power out here for it to run a CT test when there was nothing there, which is awful cool. Let's go back over and take a look real quick. Because of what we had to deal with here, right, what Jonathan had to deal with, I can't get to A phase. We tried, and there's just absolutely no way. So we had to come over and get on B phase. So literally I had to run through A phase first and get over to B phase. So we were able to get on A phase and test that, but it was a monster, okay? So now we get over here on B phase, so I wanted y'all to see B phase. We weren't even sure that A was going to test. So we were just darn lucky on that one, but we wanted you to be able to see everything. You wouldn't be able to see anything when we tested A phase from the way things were connected up. So B phase is up here on top, so you can see where my flexes are. You can see the double wrapping. You can see where the conductors run. Back up in that hot mess right there, we couldn't see it, okay? So you saw we got both, everything. You want to capture everything. You want to grab both existing and my drive cable on there with my red flex ring. Double wrap it if you can. On a load boost test, since we're, well, you might have more conductors there involved. Most of the time you can do a double wrap on it, okay? So you do a double wrap on it, and think about this. If you just wrap around the drive cable too, it may give you that darn nuisance phase angle error problem. You want to get around the existing conductors if you can, so you won't get a phase angle error, all right? Because it has nothing to reference off of if it's just around a drive cable. Little hint there. So you want to get around. I know sometimes it's tough. I mean, you saw there was no gaps in there for him to get in there. So he managed to somehow get in there and do it. Kudos to him, but we couldn't, you couldn't see anything for training purposes, so we wanted to use B phase up here up top so you could see what was going on. Okay, so get your drive cable and existing conductors both wrapped around with the flex to give you not only a reference for your phase angle, but also in case there's something, some little bit on your existing cables, it could throw off your ratio test as well, okay? So that is how you run a load boost test in the field with the ants. So thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I know you've done a bunch of these before, Martin. What's the big difference? I mean, that one, everything's fairly close, but if we're trying to do overhead stuff, then we've got to have, you know, extensions, other things, right? To be able to make that connection up there at the top.
Yeah, if you got overheads where you've got no load, you know, there's a couple ways to do it. Sometimes you'll actually have to get a bucket truck out there, right? So those extensions that you have on that 6mm current cable, you might need 50 or 100 foot to get up there and get it through that CT or clamp onto that CT overhead. So that brings up a whole other set of issues you're dealing with if you've got overhead stuff.
That's exactly right. And when you're doing the overhead and you're running the extensions, one thing at least that we've tried to help with on the extensions is there's a box at each end, so you're not running 30 or 40 feet through the CT, right? There's a box on the other end, so we just run that last little bit actually through the CT, because it'd be a pain in the neck to run 30 or 40 feet and thread it through there.
Yeah, run 100 foot of cable through that a couple times, that would, yeah. We might get a few calls. I think Ray would get a few calls on that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think Ray would, that's for sure. So, to what you said earlier, Martin, and I noticed I mentioned it in the video, and that's really one of the biggest things about this whole thing is that not walking away, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been supporting guys in the field for nearly 20 years now, and I've seen everything from snakes to birds to wasps to spiders. I have never seen an ant farm built inside that paddock. So
That's crazy.
it's a great example of really problem solving using all the assets you have to get the job done. I mean, the biggest thing is, what kind of return on an investment can I get? As field guys, a lot of times most of their investment is their time.
Yes.
So think about a rural area. If you drive out 30 or 45 minutes to a site, and you go out there and you get thrown a curveball where there's no test switch, or there's no load, or in this case you have an ant farm and no test switch and no load.
Mm-hmm.
What can you actually do to get some sort of return on your investment? That's the main thing. So never give up. Do the best that you can with all the assets that you have in your truck, and do the best job for the utility and for yourself. And this is a great example of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is that you just said at the time and the resources to send a guy out there with the truck, all the other stuff that's involved, and to make a dry run and come back without anything. No, that's not doing anybody any good. So that's a great point. And you made that before we got started. So I want to make sure we came back around to that. And so what this really allows you to do is, if you noticed, and we said in there, you can actually test the meter, and you can test the CTs with no load. As a matter of fact, I just got a call from somebody the other day, and when they're putting their pad mounts together, and they're putting their covers and everything together, they're mounting the meter on the outside of it, they're mounting the CTs on the inside before they actually carry it out there and wire it up, right? Mm-hmm. So they asked me, they said, hey, and we were talking about it. When he mentioned that, I said, well, we can test that. And he said, what do you mean? I said, you can test it before it goes out in the field. And man, he lit up like a Christmas tree. He was like, what? And I said, yeah, you can do that. And he goes, oh man, I want to see that. So he's going to see that at the demo we're doing. But I'm just telling you, if you think about that, and I've done it before where guys have 4 or 5 of them sitting there ready to go out into the field. But you can remember, we can do just what we just did. I can boost those CTs and test them using the kit with the current source. And then I also used the voltage and current source and tested the meter. So I can apply voltage and current, if I have the right kit. So you can apply the voltage and the current to it, and you can sit there and you can test that meter as well. So they could green tag them and know they're good before they even carried them out to the field and start really wiring them up in case they ran into something. There's another dry run. You go all the way out there and turns out you got something wired wrong back at the shop. So I've done that before too. So it's the capability of that no load testing or pre-testing or whatever you want to call it. And this also rolls into, it's a similar test with this to do a bench top, right?
Correct. Yep.
Right.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
You have the capability to do a CT test before it's taken out in the field as well.
That's right. Or exactly what Kent's saying, you can just set it on top of a table. Benchtop test it. So let's say lightning hits a pole and they're dragging stuff in. Instead of just throwing everything in the dumpster, why don't you test those CTs real quick and they might be fine. Okay? So I've even done that on primary stuff because it's just current in, current out. So you can do that and you can test it and go, no, we don't need to throw those away. We need to green tag them and stick them back on the shelf and save us money. So you have the benchtop test, which is just a little different than what we just did on the load boost, and then it's not in service, it's sitting on the bencher table. And then, or you can do this one that's actually in the field. But it's pretty awesome to think you can show up and there's no load there, and I can walk away telling you that meter's fine and those CTs are fine, so this one's good to go. So anything else, fellas?
That was a great video.
that was pretty good. You good, Martin?
Yeah, I'm good. How hot was it out there?
It was a little warm. It was a little warm out there. It's very south, so it was. It's very warm. Yeah, it was very warm. That's why you heard. Did you hear Jonathan make the comment? Put his sweaters on. He was putting his sleeves and stuff on, and he's like, "Let me put my sweaters on." Yeah, you get sweating. You get sweating pretty easily. But well, I want to thank the guests today. My man Kent came in from Illinois. And my man Martin came in all the way from Spokane, Washington. I think it's kind of cool what JP can pull off in here. And so aren't we going to be having an astronaut on the moon on the next one that's going to be over here?
Talk to Mullins.
Talk to Mullins. Okay, well, if you get the green light, if we give JP the green light, he'll pull it off somehow. We got monitors all over in here right now, but he pulled it off this morning and pulled Martin in. So thankful for that. Appreciate you getting up, because remember where Martin is now in Washington, so he had to get up pretty early this morning to do this. So thanks, sir. Appreciate it. And so upcoming next week, we may have a surprise for you. We may be talking about a new product. So we have that coming up. And then also JP will be sending some stuff out as far as more videos. We've got about how many more sites do we even have we haven't covered?
Oh, 3 or 4. I'm not positive.
Okay. So we've got 3 or 4 sites, and remember, it's 3 videos per site. So we've still got a lot left in the library. And but the cool thing is we just shot some other stuff, and we've got some new ideas for some that you guys have given us, which, by the way, I'm sorry, I should have said this before on these. If you've got any future stuff that you want to see, send that to JP. Okay, give us some of your ideas that you want to see out there. I've already got 2 of them from you guys that we're going to do. I know for sure 2 more videos that we're going to shoot on something people have asked for. And so we've found someone that's going to let us do that. So if you've got anything you'd like to see, send it to Jarrett Peters, and he'll let us know, and we'll try and get those included in it. But that's the main thing. We just want to get stuff you guys can use and actually maybe, like I said before, get somebody, make sure they make it home safe to their family. All right. So thank you, Kid. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks,
Appreciate
John.
it. Appreciate it today. And God bless y'all, and be careful out there. All right.
Thanks, everyone.